Hello, everybody. Hello. Once again, we're honored today to have with us a man of men, a person of knowledge, integrity, and patriotism in the true American way, Judge Andrew Napolitano. And the article that's going out tomorrow that he has written is what's basically all the major news today, but really what it means and what's next for Donald Trump. So, Judge, thanks for being on today.
Pleasure, Gerald.
You know, you have this new article coming out, and it's called The Case Against Donald Trump. It gives me no joy, you write, to write about prosecuting former President Donald J. Trump. He and I have been friends for nearly 40 years. We spoke many times during his presidency on a wide array of matters. Knowing him as I do and knowledgeable of the law, and you are knowledgeable of the law, and federal criminal procedure. You ready for this, everybody? I can state that he is his own worst enemy, and the feds, of whom I am often highly critical, had no choice but to indict him.
Now, why do I say that? If you look at the indictment, Gerald, and I hate discussing this because I know him and actually love him, but this is a very dangerous area for him. The source of the evidence against him in that indictment is his own mouth, his own words, on tape, boasting about holding secret plans to invade Iran after he left the White House, acknowledging they were secret and that he shouldn't have them, and knowing the tape wasn't being made. This is not like the feds were bugging his phones. He agreed to sit with an author and a ghostwriter and some publishers for a friend of his who's doing a book about his years in the White House and just talk extemporaneously. And so, by the way, take a look at this. Battle plans showing U.S. military strengths and weaknesses, Iran's strengths and weaknesses, Iran nuclear capabilities that have to be avoided. And he says, it's secret. I could have declassified it, but I didn't, and I still have it. Feds have all of that. The feds have testimony from his own lawyer against him. Well, how could a lawyer testify against a client? All right, so here's the attorney-client privilege in a nutshell. You're the lawyer. The client comes to you and says, I expect to be indicted for robbing a bank. What are my defenses? The money was yours. The bankers are crazy. The banker's always after me. I wasn't there. I was 1,000 miles away, whatever the defenses are. Conversation is protected. But if a client comes to the lawyer and says, I plan to rob a bank, what will my defenses be? That conversation is not protected. Why? Because the rules say there is no attorney-client privilege when the client uses the lawyer or the lawyer uses the client to perpetrate a fraud or commit a crime. In this case, a federal judge found that Trump lied to his own lawyers, and they in turn lied under oath to a federal grand jury, saying that all the documents had been returned, whereas in reality, there were over 300 still in Trump's possession. And then after the federal judge found there was no attorney-client privilege because he duped his own lawyers into lying, the lawyer testifies before a grand jury and says, oh, and by the way, he asked me to take the documents to my hotel room and make them disappear. So all of this evidence against him coming from his own mouth, his own worst enemy. He told his co-defendant, the feds are coming, hide the boxes. They both forgot there are 50 video cameras, Trump's own video cameras in Mar-a-Lago, and the feds had the tapes. They showed this guy taking boxes out of the storage room on day one, feds going through the storage room on day two, putting the boxes back in the storage room on day three. The feds have all this. Then they call this guy before the grand jury. Did you take boxes out of the storage room and put them back? No, I don't know what you're talking about. Well, then they indict him for lying to the grand jury as well as hiding these documents because Donald Trump asked him to do it. So Trump assumed that whatever he told his lawyers would remain secret. And by the way, when I was in law school, I'll show you how old I am, and we're we're about the same age, my dear friend. The attorney-client privilege was absolute. There were no exceptions. This crime fraud exception is about 35 years old. So he thought that what he said to his lawyers and what he said to the people that work for him would be absolutely secret. They both forgot about the cameras everywhere. You can't go to the bathroom at Mar-a-Lago without a camera catching you.
You know, you mentioned about, let's say, okay, he did all this, but, you know, what's the big deal?
Well, that's a very good question. If crime is harm, who was harmed?
Yeah.
Only the ego of the federal government was harmed. But the government does protect these documents because the sources of the documents are often double agents. So the government had Iranian Revolutionary Guards also working for the CIA. Their names are in these documents. They're not the actual names, identifying materials. If that ever got out, they would suffer the most horrific deaths imaginable. That's why the government protects it. Did any of this get out? We don't know, but there's no allegation that it did get out. The only allegation is that he possessed it. He claims the documents are his. Under the law, they belong to the federal government. Now, what about the Presidential Records Act? The Presidential Records Act says documents the president creates or causes to be created, documents he prepares, things that he signs, they can be kept by the president, but not documents he receives from the CIA or the FBI or the NSA or the DOD. Those documents belong to the federal government. So the fact that there was no harm, unfortunately, is not a defense. I don't know what his defense is going to be. And to make matters worse, on the day these indictments came out, his two leading lawyers quit. Not the lawyers that he lied to, who are referred to by lawyer A and lawyer B in the indictment. We all know who they are. They're not involved in this case. But the two lawyers that have been representing him for the year and a half that this case has been going on quit. What does that mean? Gerald, there are more than 1 million pages of documents in this case, 1 million. Whoever the new legal team is, and as of this morning, the day after the arraignment, he still doesn't have a new legal team. Whoever that new legal team is going to have to examine all those documents. So he's at a tremendous disadvantage there.